Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Network. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. Today, we are starting our first podcast episode with the Winning with Water podcast team, Donnell Duncan and Bill Davis. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Hey, good to be here.
Now, I know we're going to bring a lot more excitement to this first episode, and we're just getting started here. But Donnell and Bill, we need to get to know you guys because your podcast is going to be about winning with water and things like that. So the thing we want to start off with first is an introduction about your experience and how you got into civil infrastructure. So, Bill, do you want to start off, and then Donnell, you'll go right behind it.
Old school and in vocational school at my high school was kind of geared to get people's skill sets ready to go. So if they didn't want to go to college or they didn't want to go to a traditional 4-year college, they could just walk right out of high school and go get a job. And so I started out and I took all the different classes, that they had, and I landed with graphic communications. And, graphic communications, the way we look at it today is totally different. You got a word processor. You can come out with a flyer in 15, 20 minutes that looks way better than anything else that could have taken a couple of days to put together when you did it by hand. And so I started out doing it by hand. We cut everything out with an X-Acto knife, and we used rubber cement and tacked it onto the page. And then we actually went to a printing press and printed it out. And so I was really good at it. And I did the high school football program. I was the program manager for the program for the school. And I had a team of people that put everything together, and I really liked it. And so by the time I got to be a senior, I got to leave half day and go work at a printing press company. So I generated all the layout and design for the printing press company and really enjoyed it. And they were about to make me a manager of a branch. And my mom said, you're not going to work at the printing company. You're going to college. And I'm like, I don't really want to go to college. He's going to make me a manager of the store. She's like, no, you're going to college. And so everybody does what they should and listens to their mother. So I listened to my mom and I went to college. And when I got there, we had 2 campuses. One was on my side of town and the other was a community college, a 2-year community college. And the other one was way across town in the traffic. And I went to the registration booth and I started signing up and I said, hey, do you have something like graphic communications? And they're like, yeah, it's over on that campus that's all the way on the other side of the town. I'm like, I don't want to drive over there every day. And I said, what else you got that's over here? And they said, well, we have engineering graphics. And I said, that sounds a lot like what I've been doing. Let's just do that. So I signed up for engineering graphics, and I met a gentleman who was a plumber. That's what he did for a living. He was a plumber. He climbed under houses and did all this stuff. And he got what's called Dick Riley's disease in South Carolina, which is really a debilitating disease of the spine. And so he had to have his fused, his spine was fused. And so his name was Jerry. And Jerry, he was going to go into engineering graphics, which he did plumbing. So it was similar, civil engineering, mechanical engineering. And so we started learning that. And he talked to me and we talked a lot. And we became good friends. And I liked mechanical and he liked civil. So he went to work for a major civil engineering firm here in South Carolina, which is now AECOM, but it used to be a company called BP Barber. And that company was well known in South Carolina. It did almost every major water, wastewater treatment plant design in the state. And so I went to work for a small mechanical firm doing HVAC and plumbing. And we were doing computer graphics, which was brand new at the time. People didn't even know what CAD was, computer assisted drafting. We were still drawing stuff by hand and on a computer. So Jerry called me about a year later and he said, people talk about, did water find you or did you find water? Well, water found me. And so Jerry calls and he said, hey, why don't you come work for this firm with me? And I said, I don't really know anything about water, wastewater. He said, well, you're doing plumbing, you're doing HVAC. We got ventilation, we got plumbing. We do all the same stuff you do. It's just on a different scale. I said, okay. So I went there and I ended up working at that firm for 18 years. And now it's been 35 years that I've been doing water and wastewater design. And it became the love of my life. My tagline is water is my passion. And I really love what I do. I've never gone one day without a job because it's an essential job. And I love that.
That's awesome, man.
Wow. I mean, that's hard to follow. So, so I went to college. Originally, I wanted to do geology because one of my friends, his dad was a geologist and he was rich. And I was like, man, what does your dad do? Because he had like everything. I was like, whatever he does, that's what I want to do. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I realized there were only a limited number of schools that actually had geology as a degree itself. So I ended up morphing from geology into civil engineering because that was the next best thing that actually had options for college. So I ended up going to Morse College as an applied physics major in the dual degree engineering program with civil engineering at Georgia Tech. And my freshman year in applied physics, that's summer, I had no job. And instead of staying in my aunt's basement in Atlanta, wasting away, I opened up Creative Loafing, which was a free paper we had in Georgia. We still have it. And there was an ad for a boy band that was tryouts that week. And I'm just there for the summer. I was like, well, I could do something. So I was like, let me go to the boy band tryouts. And I get to the train station where I'm supposed to meet the bus that takes me to the tryouts. And I meet a guy. And that guy, he's upset and he's pacing up and down, waiting for the bus. And I'm like, dude, what's going on? And like, for some reason, I don't know why I ended up talking to him. Because typically when somebody's walking up and down muttering, you walk away from that person, especially at a bus stop. But I just kind of felt like, he seemed like a normal person. He was just acting like really upset. So he ended up talking to me and we ended up talking and he said, man, we got this job right now where we're mapping the sewer system of the city of Atlanta. And one of the guys from the crew walked off the job today and we don't have the time for stuff like that. We have a tight deadline. We got to get all these data points in. And I was like, tell me more. He's like, so he works for a civil engineering company and his uncle is the president. They have a small firm and they were subcontracted to CDM at the point in time. And CDM had the big contract with the city. So I had a job by the next week. And I was out in the field traveling around Atlanta with, at that point in time, it was cutting edge to not use typical survey equipment. We would put the survey equipment using GPS on top of the manhole and pick the point and enter it into a PC swim. And then we would open up the manhole, figure out where the pipes are, determine the size of the pipes and the direction of the pipe, and enter it into the program. And they use that to revive their GIS and to verify their as-builts. And I was an applied physics student. So after that summer, they offered me to come back whenever I wanted. I could come and work for a couple hours here and there. So while I was in school, I would just kind of go every now and then. And then I kind of forgot about them. And I made it all the way to grad school in civil engineering. And now I'm a structural engineer, intent on designing high-rise buildings. And I'm ready to go join one of those top firms to make my name downtown, retractable roofs for stadiums and stuff. That's what I'm ready to do. And I'm in advanced steel design class at 8 a.m. And the professor walks in, so who wants a job? And I'm like, I was sleeping in the class because it's 8 o'clock. I woke up when he said, who wants a job? And nobody budged. It's Georgia Tech. Like everybody has jobs except me. So I'm just like, me? So he gives me the flyer. So after the class, I go talk to him and it's a water consulting firm that was looking for a structural engineer. So they hired me before I graduated. So I actually spent my last semester of grad school working part-time and going to school part-time. So even though I tried to do something different, water kept finding me. So by the time I graduated, I was in the water business. I've never left. And I look back at my life now and I can tell you I'm supposed to be in water because I didn't choose it. It chose me.
Awesome.
It's amazing listening to both of your stories and how someone during your life puts you in civil infrastructure, just someone you met on the street, like Don was talking about, someone you meet just in the plumbing industry, just puts you in the right place. It's always how people come into your life. And that's kind of how you and us all three kind of got together with this
Mhm.
podcasting, right? Which leads us into why winning with water. So why when you and I, Bill and Donnell, we sat down and had a podcast episode on my channel. Why did you want to start your own podcast channel, Winning with Water? Who wants to start? Bill, you're up.
Why do I always have to go first?
Just to
All right.
start.
So,
It's just
hey,
a process.
I think, winning with water is a natural, it resonated with me immediately. Again, my whole career, I wouldn't have it any other way. People say, well, do you regret anything you've done? No, I love every opportunity I've had and everything I've learned in every place I've been. And when I say winning with water, my early part of my career, I spent focused on gaining skills and learning new things. And I love learning. I love making positive change. And so I remember one time I was reading a book and my wife asked me, we were at home, and she's reading some, novel or something. And I'm reading this book and she's like, what are you reading? And I said, I'm reading a book on land application for sludge. And she's like, why? And I said, because I'm trying to gain skills, so I really, this is legitimate, I mean, she actually asked me that question. She actually naysayed me for reading sludge, books at night. So I learned a lot of things. And over the course of those years, I trained a lot of people and I brought a lot of people along. And actually, some of those people are in their 40s now. And I really feel old. And so as I look back and I think, what do I want to do with the last 10 years of my life? And the answer is always, I want to train young people to respect the water. We say water is life, and we say that sometimes as a phrase, but it's true. Everything we do, everything we have is because of water. And water, we're born from water. We're born from our mothers in water. And we live through, our bodies are mostly made of water. Everything circles around water. And I want to instill the value of water to this younger generation and draw them into what we do because I want our water future to be bright. So that's why water for me.
That's good. Yeah. You know, this this never did cross my mind. Like my number one passion is preaching. So if I was going to do a podcast, it was going to be on something completely different. I would have never thought of something like this. And when you brought the idea to me, I thought about it. I was like, well, if I want to do this today, I mean, is it that serious? And I kind of thought through it, and then I realized, it's about people.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, even if we are talking about water, we're not talking about H2O molecules. We're talking about people. We're talking about people like you and me who get up every day, or we protect the environment. People who ensure that our communities remain healthy. People who take a responsibility to sacrifice their own comfort for the comfort of the general populace. So I thought, you know what? I could connect with that. I can get with that because as long as we're centering people in the conversation, it's a conversation I'm interested in. Like
Yeah.
I don't pretend to say I get excited about H2O, the chemicals and the processes and stuff like that. I like it if you like it and you're excited and you're a person that I'm friends with or whatever, we can have a conversation because that's what we're doing. But
Yeah.
it's the people that really excites me the most. And podcasts are about communicating with people. That's really the essence of it. And it's always a challenge as technical professionals to remember that and to not go down a rabbit trail of chemicals and machines and nuts and bolts and just get caught up in the mechanics and in the chemicals and all the other things when it's really about people. So winning with water for me has to do with ensuring that we as an industry and the people in the industry keep winning. And in my mind, the thing that came to me was, look, we want everybody to win. And can we have a conversation about what's good about our industry? What's best about our industry? Can we sit down and celebrate the reasons why we have committed our careers to this specialty? Like I mentioned, we could have been doing something different. We could have been elsewhere. And for some reason, we kept coming back year after year to water. And we kept sticking with it. And now we are so vested in it that we're like, I'm in. And as a
All in.
result, it just connected with me. I was like, let's just do it. Let's do this. Because, and of course, Bill is one of the selling points too. Because I was like, Bill is my guy. So if Bill and I are going to sit down and talk about something, sure. I'm like, I'm good with it, and I do believe there are times and seasons for everything, and you have to recognize when this may be one of those. So I felt in my heart like this might be a good time for something like this. I think this is it. So I'm like, let's just.
Yeah, it's
All right,
been
I got to
great.
go off script.
Go ahead.
I got to go off script. I'm
Go
sorry.
for it.
I got to go off script. All right. So when Donnell's talking about H2O, I'm going to age myself a little bit, and I'm going to see if any of y'all know what I'm talking about. There was a guy named Carmen that sang Christian music,
Oh yeah.
and there was a really awesome band named DC Talk.
Oh yeah.
And so Carmen had an album, and the album there was a song on there that DC Talk sang on there with him. And they were like, Carmen comes up and he's like, "What up, Carmen?" And he said, "Hey, are you A to J?" And they're like, "A to J, man, what you talking about? Like some H2O?" They did that in the background. He's like, "No, are you A to J?" And they're like, talking about preaching now.
Right.
So are you A to J? He said, "What is A to J?" Addicted to Jesus. So it was kind of like it was just a nice little
I
rap
remember.
song that kind of came out old school, Are you H2O? No, what are you talking about? A2J. Are you H2O?
It's funny.
It was fun. We'll have to
I
clip
remember.
that in. Can we clip that in?
If you could find it, that'll be funny. Yeah, yeah, and it's good. I think it brings joy to be a part of a celebration of a beautiful industry that's doing something meaningful.
Yeah. That's the thing I found with podcasting. It's something that we've never really explored in civil infrastructure because it's always webinars, death by PowerPoint, like you were talking about molecules and stuff like that, just too deep, right? We just need to be real and have real conversations about what's really happening. And when I met you both through podcasting, we did that one episode together and we had so many views on like the clips and things like that I was putting out. I was like, well, these two need a podcast because you both interact so uniquely together and create content it's fun and exciting, right? So I'm really looking forward to like these episodes we're going to start cranking out in the next several, months over the, this period of time going into this year. So I'm really excited about what's going to happen with this podcast, Money with Water, because we were talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. We're talking about things with water that people don't really talk about a lot of, or it's in a webinar hidden, somewhere on a desktop or somewhere, right? So we're going to get all this content out there in front of people so they can really start understanding what water is really about from two different perspectives of our lives, right? And bring on guests and things like that. So this is going to be exciting. Then we got a couple more minutes, but we want to talk about the vision of this podcast. So, Bill, do you want to talk about the vision?
Well, I think our vision is tied to our future, and we envision a future with no water challenges, and I see a lot of challenges, and with those challenges that they come in every day. We're seeing challenges. You're seeing challenges of affordability. We're seeing challenges of staffing. We're seeing challenges of need for innovation to replace people that are not available any longer. I look at the water future is bright if we get people involved. Until we can, Donnell, I was at Texas Water last week and I was talking about workforce and how workforce is dwindling. And the staggering statistics of retirement are somewhere to 30 to 50% over the next 5 years of our water workforce are up for retirement. And if these people retire and we're only replacing them at like 3 out of 10, then we're coming up 7 out of 10 short every year. And you look at the national statistics for water jobs and it would shock you. You look at the numbers, you say, okay, we got this many water workers, thousands of water workers. And then you look and you say, okay, by 2030, the number of water workers is going to be negative 6%. Well, guess what? The population's not going down. The number of people in the workforce is going down. So we're going to see an increase in the need for jobs and a decrease in the people available to do the job. So what I would like to see out of this podcast is to spark interest in people telling their water story. What Donnell and I just did is tell our water story. If we don't tell our water story and we don't draw people in, the future won't be bright. And you start looking at, are we talking about winning with water? Or are we talking about losing without people? So let's win with water.
Love it. Donnell?
So I'm going to jump in here from a different angle. So I've been in many rooms in the last couple of years with water leaders across the country, having a conversation about what can we do to rebrand our industries. We're competing with so many industries that give young people coming out of school great options. And we think that the driver for the branding of the industries comes from the industry associations, or we think it comes from the companies. But the truth is, a lot of people know about being a police officer from watching a police officer television show. And that's what excited them as kids. A lot of people get excited about being in the military from watching a bunch of war movies and watching how Marines presented. And a lot of people want to be Navy SEALs, not because you've met a Navy SEAL, but because when you look on TV, you saw some really cool Navy SEAL movie thing, TV show, whatever. And in this culture, a lot of people understand what the options are by looking at TikTok videos, by looking at people's podcasts, by looking at people's social media, and you get excited and you think, oh, I want to be just like her. Why? Because her social media is awesome. I want to be just like him because his TikTok videos are so amazing. I want to be a nurse because that nurse has like 1 million followers and talks about the day in the life of a nurse. People get excited about working on an airline because there are so many of the airline employees that do all these hacks and they do these articles and talk about the behind the scenes in the airline industry and what it's like to do what they do. We don't have that anymore. And we think we can solve the problem of our brand by just one approach, when the truth is we all have to work together. Our associations have to do their part to represent us. Our people who go to the fly-ins and go speak to the government officials have to do their part. Our companies have to represent us well. But social media, podcasts, entertainers, everybody's got to do their part to promote this industry because those are the people that the young people are listening to. They're not necessarily watching our PBS special on water industry, whatever. They're not sitting down reading our PFAS articles. They're watching podcasts. They're listening to audiobooks. They're looking at movies. That's what's feeding their perception of who they want to become when they grow up. So as a result, I like things like podcasts because this gives us an option where we can present our industry in a way that people are actually ingesting information. And it's not the formal way. People are learning their news from social media. They're learning concepts of life and how to invest their money from TikTok videos, and from people are figuring out how to dress by looking at Facebook. And I love that Instagram. I follow on Instagram because that's how I learn to cook. Like things that don't make sense in this industry. makes sense in this generation. And for us, it's about time we just start switching it up. So it's not about talking about, well, we need to, why don't we be the change?
Yeah, why don't we just get like and have like a Hollywood line in? Maybe we can get in some of these movie scripts and stuff. I mean, they're pretty presentable. You just go on and be like the Water King or something like on a movie. Not Water World. No, that was terrible. Water World was terrible. So maybe we get a better movie.
I love how
I'm
you
saying,
both. I was going to say, I love how you both kind of, we're out of time on this first episode, but I'd love how you both describe in two different ways, but very similar in the way of like leveraging social media, leveraging the, a day in the life of a water operator, for example. It sounds like that's what we should be, someone should be following around Bill with a camera and be like, what's it like to be a manager of water and wastewater, right? I mean, seriously, people.
It's terrible. Don't do it. No.
I think it would be entertaining, to be honest with you. What I know it sounds boring, but you figure out like every day there's unique situations. Water main breaks, this is happening. There's a fire somewhere. You got to put it out, right? There's fires every day. So people don't see it. So they're never it's out of sight, out of mind as this whole industry has been. So these podcasts are a great way to open up the window to get insights into what's really happening in this industry. So I'm excited for this podcast.
I love your idea.
Yeah. Bill, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, I love the idea of the day in the life, because a lot of people don't know what all we do and how do we make it exciting, but to show them how much fun we have all day.
Yeah, true. Well, this is a good start to our first episode, guys. I truly appreciate you coming on and starting your first podcast, the Winning with Water podcast, and looking forward to episode number 2.